Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Guys Who Stare at Stats. I'm Cade Kennedy alongside Andrew Santangelo and Connor Gray, and we have a lot to get to today, folks. But first of all, if you want to see more content, as always, subscribe if you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, leave a comment below, always helps out. And now, on to the most important question of the day as we near towards Thanksgiving. Oh, so close. Connor and Andrew, how are y'all doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I mean, another Monday. I felt kind of quick today. But no, I'm doing pretty good. Another good day, good week in sports. Another fun week ahead of us. And like you said, Thanksgiving. So thankful for that time and everything. And hope you guys are getting to go home or something and do something fun for Thanksgiving.
Yeah, pretty much been a more relaxing day for me since not having to worry about writing anything for the paper this week. But also got to watch a good soccer game that featured America.
I got to have good Thanksgiving plans. I'll be taking a 0-mile trip, so it's always fun when you get to have Thanksgiving in your own house, just yourself and maybe a few other people, but that's about it. But, man, it is going to be a interesting time here. We've got the World Cup going on now, the first time I think ever that they've done it in winter. College basketball starting to heat up. Maui tournament began today. We have a lot to get to, so let's just start with the global event going on, the World Cup in Qatar, United States taking on Wales, and it was a disappointing game, to say the least, for the United States. You have control most of the game, but when you need to get a stop, Gareth Bale in the 82nd minute on a penalty kick ties the game up, and we finish with a 1-1 draw, meaning that currently England, with their 6-2 win over Iran, is currently first in the group. Wales is tied with the United States at second, and Iran is technically all the way down at fourth. The U.S. takes on England on Friday, and that is going to be a major game, of course. Anytime those two get together, always interesting to think just the history of those two countries, not just in sports, but just, in the world. Kind of important stuff happened between those two.
Yeah, pretty much. But obviously for the United States, watching this whole game, it was really great. It was an amazing first half, just seeing the United States pretty much control that entire first half. They barely gave Wales any room to breathe. It was mainly played on their side of the field. Wales constantly having to play defend. They narrowed everything down to prevent United States getting anything set up on goals, but they were able to get an opening and get right around the 36-minute mark and get the first goal of the game. And it was like that for a while, and then Wales started playing more aggressive. The United States looked like they were playing more conservative in regards to they were just playing to keep the lead rather than be aggressive half the time. And then they got aggressive, but that was after Wales got their goal, and then the United States was pressing quite a bit and try to get that go-ahead goal, but were unable to. And this game had a lot of really questionable officiating. United States got two yellow cards within a span of a minute of each other on some very bad calls. One guy both guys were already going down, and yet they ruled it that he knocked him down, even despite the fact it didn't happen. There was a blatant hit on one of our guys. Guy blatantly shoved one of our guys, and all of a sudden they didn't for some reason do a yellow card. It was just a lot of things that happened. But at the end of the day, the United States should have won this match, but didn't happen.
You at least got a point if you're the United States, but 15 fouls to 10, 4 yellow cards to 2, looking at the stats here. If you're the U.S., you have possession nearly 60% of the game. You had opportunities to put this away, but like we've said about other sports, playing prevent prevents you from winning the game. The age-old story there.
Sure.
It will always be true. It does not matter what sport it is. You can't go that conservative when you're trying to hold on.
I mean, you're conservative for almost nearly about 25, 30 minutes before you have to switch gears to you have to play aggressive. If they would have been aggressive pretty much most of that second period, they would have probably either got another goal or would have prevented Wales from even getting their penalty kick. But things happen.
Yeah, but moving on to our next subject, it is college basketball season as well. New AP Top 25 coming out today. To the surprise of, absolutely nobody. North Carolina still number one. Tar Heels 4-0 as of when the poll came out this morning. You're going to hear me say that a lot. Things have already changed. When you have tournaments, you have earlier games. Some teams have improved. Some teams have, well, not improved. That's what happens when you get good matchups, though. Number 2 is Houston. They got a big win against Oregon last night, trying to scrape out a win there. And the Cougars, that's just what they do under Coach Sampson. They don't need to drop 70 or 80 to impress you. Always a sound defensive unit there. Number 3 is Kansas. What else can you say about Kansas? They're already looking good. The Jayhawks, doesn't matter who's coaching that team, they're going to find a way to win. When you got the power of Grady Dick, that's just a hard guy to stop. Number 4 is Texas. Texas is back in not football, but basketball. Horns looking good. Virginia up at number 5. They have had some impressive victories already this season. And then wrapping it up and kind of going a bit more quick here because, I mean, we could talk about this. This could be its own video if it really needed to be.
It could be.
Gonzaga at 6, Baylor at 7, Duke falls to 8, Arkansas and Creighton staying at 9 and 10, Indiana 11, Michigan State the big riser up to 12, Auburn and Arizona staying put at 13 and 14, Kentucky taking a bit of a tumble, just that casual 11 spot fall all the way to 15, Illinois up to 16, San Diego State and Alabama holding put at 17 and 18, UCLA falls to 19, UConn up to 20, Tech at 21, Tennessee at 22, Maryland 23, Purdue 24, and Iowa in at 25.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff in there. I think, first off, got to give Kansas a lot of credit, starting 4-0 without Bill Self. I'm honestly surprised they were able to get 4 wins. I thought the Bill Self effect, not having him, would take a hit a little bit there for Kansas, but they're able to overcome that adversity and survive. I think he's gone, 5 games? So I think they got one more there to survive without him. I'm not sure who it's against. But, so they've looked pretty good. Virginia's been pretty impressive. I mean, they come in. I know they jump up 11 spots, rightfully so. But to get both those wins they got last week, couldn't say that enough. And I think, listen, there's one team out there in receiving votes, Ohio State. I think they're a very good team, and I know, Cade, you mentioned the Maui tournament. They're a team to look out for in that one. To find a way to go on and win that one would not surprise me. They have an opportunity to really jump themselves up in the rankings next week. So that's Ohio State's my team to look out for this week, kind of going in for maybe a team that you could see jump up big time here next week. And then, I mean, just going off today, just open that tournament was Creighton wins big. Double-digit win over Texas Tech, so they pick up a ranked win there. So, no, a lot of fun start to this college basketball season. And, I don't know, a team you really haven't seen kind of get off to a good start and jump up in those rankings in a while is UConn, too. So, they start 5-0, and they're up in the rankings. So, no, I think it's been a good year for college basketball.
I would always agree. I mean, it's always one of those fun times. We're getting into where now everyone really starts to pay attention. You have Maui, you have the Battle for Atlantis, you have the PK80 now. You have all these major tournaments that people follow. You get to see all these great teams. It's just unfortunate that, this year especially, we had the World Cup on top of that. Just another thing to kind of – every sport is trying to compete for that limited window, and somebody's usually going to be the sufferer there of not as much attention. But speaking of a team that probably doesn't need attention right now, TCU was 15 last week. They have fallen all the way out. The Horned Frogs, I can't stress it enough, just as disastrous start they've had to their season.
Absolutely. They're always an interesting team where, I don't know, they always get a lot of respect, and then they kind of start off slow. To me, this is just typical TCU. I was surprised to see how high they were to start the year and everything, so it doesn't really surprise me to see them start like this. And I think they kind of live off conference plays, really, when they start to at least compete a little bit more. So, I don't know. That one didn't really surprise me a whole lot to see them start the way they have.
There you go. Now, moving on, shifting gears once again to the NFL. Always a fun week in the NFL. You got your big game tonight, San Francisco taking on Arizona. The NFL returning to Mexico City, first time since 2019. So, hopefully they fix the field this time.
Right.
That's all I can say there. No Kyler Murray in that game tonight is what I was told. So we get the fun time battle, the quarterbacks everyone loves to see, Jimmy Garoppolo versus Colt McCoy, America's greatest quarterback matchup, moved to Mexico.
I'm going to call it ESPN real quick. I know we joked about it because McCaff didn't play a game, but he's played a game now. He should be the leading rusher.
There's no leading rusher.
I know you didn't want to do that after the trade, but he's played a couple there now, so I think we can put him on the rushing stats.
Yeah, no, not allowed there. Niners are a 10-point favorite in this one. It's going to be an interesting ball game.
I mean, I think you have to take the Niners with Murray. I would love to see Arizona pull off this win. Again, you guys know my feeling on San Francisco. I mean, honestly, if Arizona found a way to win this at home, it wouldn't surprise me a whole lot. Hopefully, DeAndre Hopkins is able to play. He's still been questionable, so hopefully we can see him get out there, or else this game really might not be too interesting to watch.
Yeah, so this could turn into a San Francisco plays Arizona's JV squad, and
Yeah, pretty much.
essentially that might happen here anyway. I would think the Niners get the win here.
Yeah, I think Niners overall are more sound, not dealing with as many injuries and any questionable stuff. So, really, I think Niners will just do enough to get the victory, even though Colt McCoy played well last week.
That's what they do best, the Niners. Just doing enough. Don't need to do everything. You just need to do enough. But moving back to what happened a little bit earlier on last week, the Titans taking down the Packers. It looked like Green Bay, they might have figured something out a little bit, and now you're back to square one. Tennessee with a 27-17 win in a game where, I mean, Green Bay was in it all the way till the end, but once again, Titans, anytime they need to make a big play, Ryan Tannehill's right there.
The Titans might be the quietest 7-3 team ever. Like, I don't know. Nobody ever talks. Like, if you would ask me, like, if I didn't watch football, like, oh, is Tennessee doing well? I would have said no. Like, it seems like nobody ever talks about them. And I know they got off to the slow, struggling starts to start the year. They were finding ways to win. But, like, it just seems like they're so much worse than 7-3. But this game kind of spoke to that. I mean, they battled out through the first quarter. Derrick Henry obviously carries them. And Ryan Tannehill coming off the injury is able to get enough done. But, no, Tennessee's they've been pretty good. And credit to them. They beat the struggling Packers. They were obviously hoping to figure things out after a big comeback win against Dallas. But I don't know. It's definitely panic time out there for Green Bay.
Yeah, pretty much. You nailed it right on the head. Tennessee's pretty much just. It feels like it's kind of like what Frisco does, even though Frisco's done a much worse job at it. Tennessee just does enough to get. It seems like they just do enough with Derrick Henry obviously carrying a lot of the team through most of the games, but still, it seems like they just as a unit do enough to win games at times. But then they've had games where they played really well, and then times where it's like, how did you win those games?
And I want to bring your attention to this just because it's funny to see. We're going to talk about it a little bit more when we get to the Lions-Giants game, but congrats to Detroit. You're now second in the NFC North at 4-6. What a time to be alive for the Lions. They're just finding ways. And also, Tennessee, 7-3, absolutely cruising in the AFC South.
Real quick, while we're talking about divisions, look at Jacksonville. 3-7 in third, but they clearly got the most points for in that division. Like, it's almost like, when you're talking about fantasy, I was like, I got the most points for, but I just can't find ways to win. How about Jacksonville?
That's Jacksonville.
216, next closest 193, and they're not even within a game or two of the division.
Yeah, I know. Well, they're just vibing out there, Andrew. They're just doing their own thing. But the next one to get to here, the Bears taking on the Falcons, keeping with NFC North teams not being able to find a way to close out. Falcons getting into a fun territory because shout out to Cordell Patterson breaking the NFL record, his 9th kickoff return touchdown. Congratulations to him. And it couldn't have come at a more important time in a game where the Falcons were down double digits, needed a spark. They get it from Patterson, come back, tie the game before halftime. And Younghoe Koo doing what he does best, another clutch field goal late, giving the Falcons a 27-24 win. And hey, Atlanta's 5-6.
Yeah. It's probably one of the more surprising things. I probably would have had Atlanta pretty much at the bottom of the NFC South, but yet they're finding ways just to stay around the division lead right now. Are they in first?
They are, well, let's find out. They are currently half a game behind Tampa Bay.
Okay. But
they're right there.
They're right, yeah, they're right there. So it's like they're battling Tampa for that first spot. So it's one of the surprising things of the year. And one thing I will say, Bears overall as a unit, they're playing much better as a team, but they struggle to win, to finish games. They should have beaten Detroit, and then they failed to keep the lead against the Falcons. So it's like they're doing things right, but they gotta get it together.
No, I mean, Cordell Patterson's, I'll continue to say, he's one of the most underrated players in the NFL, and he finds a way. And we saw it last year when he was basically a receiver and running back. Then they moved him strictly to mainly running back, and now again this year he's just doing everything. And you saw how much the Atlanta Falcons missed him when he missed 3 games straight there in the middle of the season. So, and he comes back last week, and then this week he makes his presence known on special teams. He just does it all, and that's why Atlanta keeps finding ways to win. And I get Mariota's obviously able to manage the game well enough to win, but I really think Cordell Patterson's the best player on this team, and he once again gets the job done for him.
Yep. And the next one here, we don't often see neutral site games in the NFL, but when you're expected to get a few feet of snow in Buffalo, even I don't think they wanted to play in that weather there. I'm sure a few fans would have not minded, but the game in Detroit, Buffalo gets a 31-23 win over Cleveland in a game that really was not that close. The Browns scoring with 20 seconds left to make it that one-possession game that we see. But this was one that the Bills just didn't really need to do a whole lot at times. I mean, yes, you get down early 10-3, but you just let Cleveland beat themselves. I mean, Jacoby Brissett's not the greatest threat in the world to deal with. He finishes the game 28 for 41. Did play more solid, though, with 324 and 3 TDs.
True, but Buffalo pretty much over time of the game showed that they were the much better team. I mean, you pretty much had a comfortable lead. Obviously, Cleveland made it look close, but can't say much about what Buffalo's trying to do. But I will say Brissett did play a much better game.
Yeah, I mean, just do every team that plays the Browns, just let them beat themselves in the end.
Exactly.
It's like I do. But no, the Bills come out a little sluggish. Obviously, I think everything going on made it a little weird for them. And, I mean, I thought it was weird they left on Saturday with all the snow. I mean, everyone saw the pictures of fans helping, I forget his name, but one of their offensive linemen dig out of the snow there so you get to the airport. And my first thought was, you guys knew the snowstorm was coming. How did you not leave earlier?
I don't get it.
But anyway, no, yeah. So it was an odd week for them, but in the end, the better team got the win, and you took care of business. So again, it doesn't matter how you start, it's more about how you finish there, and that's what they're able to do, take care of business.
Yep. I mean, I would love to see more neutral site NFL games. I feel like just kind of funny every once in a while games like this when you get them, but they're a true rare sight, and it sure is weird seeing a Detroit game with no Detroit fans.
Oh, it's like you get you have the Mexico City, and then you have London, then they did one in Germany. So
yeah, but I mean like one in America though.
Yeah, that's never going to happen unless it's
make
Super
Dallas
Bowl.
play in the Cotton Bowl.
There you go.
That would be something.
That would be great. Get 95,000 people there for a Cowboys game. Make somebody come to Oklahoma. Chiefs, Cowboys, and Norman. Let's do it. Could be fun there. Neutral site, perfect. Eagles taking on the Colts. Andrew, I have several questions. Number 1, why? Number 2, how? Also, Matt Ryan, he's back. He's playing all right.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, again, a road game is always tough. Like I said, it's not about how you start; it's all about how you close out the game.
Win probability.
And
Look at that.
and that's what the Eagles were able to do. I mean, you're coming off a loss, and I mean, I'm not freaking out yet, and I'm still not. But the Eagles, I mean, Jalen Hurts is able to get the job done. I mean, he's doing it with his arm, his legs. You ask him to do it, he'll get it done. I mean, defense played phenomenal. I mean, they kept you in the game the whole time. Yeah, it was a bad first drive, but after that, they were lights out. You could take away probably 6 of those Colts points if it wasn't for offensive mistakes. And then again, Hurts and company got it done. And I'll tell you what, I don't know if you guys saw it, but that final quarterback run for the winning touchdown there by Hurts, I don't know what the Colts defense was doing because there was not a defender even close to him.
But I mean,
worrying about everybody else that's not Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, those offensive linemen, they'll sneak up on you. But what a win for the Eagles, still undefeated on the road, 9-1 record. And I mean, this was kind of the weekend Philadelphia needed. You had all the talk of Minnesota getting their huge win against Buffalo. You had that controversy there, starting a little bit of that talk. Okay, who is the best team in the NFC? It's not like these two teams have played each other.
Yeah, I love it.
But
and it was not like it was close. It was Eagles by 17.
We'll get to that other team in a little bit, what Minnesota did when they took on the Cowboys. But still, solid win for the Eagles. Any win in the NFL is a good win. And the next one here, a game no one watched and a game no one deserved to watch. 3-3 most of the game between the Jets and the Pats. But Marcus Jones has an 84-yard punt return in the final 20 seconds of the game, running it all the way back. And with 5 seconds left, the Patriots finally got a touchdown on the board. 10-3, New England defeats the Jets in a game where now Zach Wilson's job is back on the questionable spot.
Well, I just don't get. There should never, in my opinion, be a punt return or a kick return winning touchdown or like that. Like, just kick the ball out of the bounds. Like, don't even give a team a chance. There's 10 seconds left, I think, at the start of the kick, or maybe a little bit more than that. But like, there's no reason to even give that other team a chance to run one back. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I get how rare it is. I get all that and everything, but sacrifice 10 yards to kick it out of bounds, because especially in a game, it's not like it's 40-40 and you guys are like driving on each other like crazy. It's 3-3. Wilson's been struggling Jones and the Patriots offense has been struggling all game. Like, don't even give them a chance to get the punt return.
I like how Jones went 23. It was at 27.
Yeah, 23 for 27.
Then throws basically almost 250 yards. So it's like Mac Jones didn't have a terrible game, but didn't amount to anything. And then obviously Zach Wilson's been having a rough few games.
I mean, the big thing here was the 103 yards of offense for the Jets. If I remember correctly, they had only 5 yards the entire second half or something like that. It was the lowest the Jets have ever had in a second half.
Well, I was watching it, and I think it was mid-fourth or maybe early fourth quarter, and the broadcast puts up a stat, and it says negative 12 passing yards in the second half. Like, how do you have negative? Because even if you get sacked, that takes off rushing yards from your team, not passing yards. It's like, how do you have negative 12 passing yards halfway through a half?
Threw it backwards, I don't know.
Magic, Andrew. Absolutely magic. I'm sure we could go back and look at the play-by-play if we really wanted to, but all you're going to do is feel sad for everyone who watched the game when you do it. An ugly, ugly game, but like I said with the Eagles, a win is a win is a win. It's something you have to get, and now both
what
teams.
A division, though.
Yeah, 6-4 for both squads now. I mean, credit to the Patriots. You suffered through it, but special teams came up big. In a game of a lot of punts, you finally got the big return.
Wait, what? You obviously got the Bills, I think 7-3.
Yeah.
Then what? The Dolphins 6-4, and then what? The rest is 6-4.
Yeah, 7-3, Miami and Buffalo, and then New England and New York are 6-4.
Yeah. I mean, that's what the NFC East is now too. Washington's 6-4, and they're at the bottom.
I was like, everyone in the AFC East is good. Everyone in the Easts are good.
Yeah.
We just need to let them all settle it out. And then the next one, the Rams taking on the Saints, a game of two teams trying to find any sense of direction. And at the end of the day, Andy Dalton stepping up to the challenge, 21 for 25, 263 TDs. The Saints get a 27-20 win over the Rams. I mean, this is a huge game for New Orleans, trying to get back in that division race. I would say playoff race, but the only way they're getting in is that division race. But now they're sitting in a good spot. They're a game and a half back. You still got a whole lot of stuff in front of you.
And undisappointing thing is Stafford went out with a concussion, so he will not be playing next week against the Chiefs. But good win for New Orleans. Andy Dalton still showing that he can still play. Despite the fact a lot of people probably would have relegated him to as a backup, but showing he could still ball out with the rest of them. And it was a good win by New Orleans to at least try to improve your position in the division to try to sneak up on taking that first place spot if things pan out properly.
Yeah, no question. I mean, Rams, I think maybe would have won this game if Stafford doesn't go down. But no, it's a shame to see him go down. But it'll be one of those Super Bowl teams to miss the playoffs now, probably, unless they have a tremendous late run here in the last half of the season. But no, credit to the Saints, battle and find ways to win. I'd be shocked if they're able to pull off the division win, but we'll see.
Well, we will have to see. But yes, obviously, not a good place to be if you're the Rams, sitting at 3-7. Just a season that seems that everything that can go wrong has gone wrong. The next one here, the Lions taking on the Giants, and it's a win streak in Detroit. It's now 3 wins in a row for the Lions. They're 4-6, and this was another game where Detroit just keeps finding ways. That offense is fun to watch. And, I mean, no matter who it is, it also helps when the Giants turn the ball over 3 times as well. That's always a help there. But Jamal Williams just going off for the Lions. Fun day for him, and DeAndre Swift also having a big game as well.
So I know Daniel Jones had 2 interceptions, but it looked like he had a game of his life if you take away the interceptions.
Yeah.
But then
That's the Lions' defense for you.
Interceptions really came into play on that one. It's just amazing how Detroit in the last 3 games has actually not given up like over 30-plus points, it seems like.
Yeah,
but they're doing a great job. They've won 3 in a row, and they've done, once again, have get themselves into second place. So good job for them. Obviously, New York, this hurts. You're down to 7-3, but you're still right there, just 2 games behind Philly.
And not only do they have 3 turnovers, how about scoring 3 touchdowns and not converting the extra point twice and then missing the 2-point conversion? So you scored 3 touchdowns and weren't able to get the following points after. I know one of them in the game, but still, just those mistakes, I mean, obviously pile up and cost you.
Yep.
But credit to Detroit, how about the run game? I mean, you have obviously DeAndre Swift, then you have Jamal Williams get 3 touchdowns, and they got your leading rusher in yards, Jackson. So, I mean, just going through the running back depth there to get this win.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Jackson as well, 9 carries, 66 yards. Detroit just used everybody. Everybody was going to be a factor today. And, hey, that's what you got to do to win in the NFL and to beat a good Giants team there. The next one to talk about, the Ravens and the Panthers. If you watch this game, you're a trooper. I'll just say that. This might have been one of the most boring games I've – this is similar to Jets-Patriots.
So it's worse.
Except this one might be worse because you literally just waited for nothing to happen. Unless you're a big Justin Tucker fan, I get that. Greatest kicker of all time, you could say that.
Ooh.
He got some big field goals, but 6-3 in the fourth quarter. Baker Mayfield turning it over, and Lamar Jackson doing his thing, getting that 1-yard plunge, getting in. Ravens 13-3. In a game where Carolina just comes unraveled in the fourth quarter. You get down 6-3, and then turnover after turnover after turnover, trying to get back into the game, and you just keep going backwards. And Baltimore's defense, credit to them, they take over and get a dominant win on their side. Not as much dominant looking on the offensive side.
I would say it's mainly Baltimore's offense has been really disappointing, especially with something. It's like Lamar Jackson, I know, is the biggest weapon, and Baltimore has had their issues with certain aspects in regards to their skill players, but still, it's like that they have too much talent on that offense to not be at least scoring at least average like 17, 20 points. Instead, you're barely getting 13. Mainly, you have to come off the back with 2 made field goals by Justin Tucker, great kicker. But still, it's like Carolina. It's kind of for them. We kind of expected them not to necessarily be very good. I mean, I know Baker had a better game last week coming off the bench, but he got the starting. Was given the starting job, and all of a sudden he can't really do much. But I mean, that's credit to Baltimore's defense playing very good. For the most part, I'd say a lot of the reason why they're 7-3 is because their defense has pretty much carried Baltimore.
Yeah, Baker's also got nobody to work with. I mean, while I do think it's not the only problem, but I will defend him in that sense. And I'll tell you what, he's one of those guys that really hasn't been given a full fair shot. But you know what? I think it's going to be a 1-year thing with Carolina, and it'll be interesting to see where the offseason takes him. But I think he's going to go down as one of those guys that just never really had a fair shot and is going to see that NFL career kind of slip away just partially because of that. And I think this game speaks tribute to it and along with the season. You're going against a really good Baltimore team. I mean, you're starting running backs Foreman. I mean, I can't remember if DJ Moore played or not, but, I mean, in the end, Marshall's your leading receiver, and he only had 3 catches. So that's not a recipe for winning, but credit to Baltimore. They did enough to win. I think it's one of those that kind of just they knew what they were going against in Carolina, took the team a little lightly, and just said, let's survive a win.
It does not help when you can't run the ball either, obviously. Deontay Foreman, 11 carries, 24 yards. When you can't run half your offense, a team, Carolina, that even though they traded away Christian McCaffrey, was still able to run the ball well, you can't play with a hand tied behind your back and then trying to play with 2 fingers as well. Absolutely nothing to go there, like you said earlier, Andrew. When you have no weapons, it's hard to do anything.
Yeah, every quarterback needs them.
Yeah. The next one here, you want to talk about teams with no weapons as Best Buy tries to get me to buy things for Black Friday. Vegas, in overtime, getting a win over Denver. What a game this was for the Raiders. You needed a win. You absolutely had to have a win if you were Raiders. And they get it, 22-16 in overtime. Broncos Nation, what is going on? Broncos country just riding into the abyss.
Depression is what it is.
It's just sad to see if you're a Denver fan. If you're literally anyone else in the division, I'm sure you're happily cheering it on. But, man, this is something now. where it's just I don't know what to say about Denver. There's nothing else that can be said that hasn't already been said.
Pretty much exactly. Just everything, like all the talent, everything that all the money that Denver spent this last offseason, especially obviously you got Russell Wilson, you gave him $242 million, and then you got other guys there that you've already had under your belt, or you brought in a few other guys to help out. This team on paper was primed to be to at least compete with the Chiefs. Instead, they've turned into a complete disaster. I don't really know if it's Russell Wilson being the huge problem or Nathaniel Hackett being their head coach. I do not know. Raiders obviously finally pulled off a win especially with all the talent that they have. They should at least have at least 5 wins under their belt instead of being 3-7. Denver on paper probably should at least be having a winning record, but they don't, which makes me happy. Hoo-ha. But Denver I don't know what to say about them. It's just a complete utter train wreck for their season. And Las Vegas, the best thing they can do is somehow just go from here on out, actually win all the rest of their games. That's the only way they're going to probably get a shot into the playoff, unless things just topple around them.
Yeah, I mean, Devontae Adams is that receiver. I mean, he's one of the best, if not the best in the league, and he showed you why, and he continues to show you why. With another fantastic game. He was too much for Denver. That's what it comes down to in this game. With the game, yeah. I mean, again, I think Denver's dealt with a lot of injuries this year as well. I think that's played a part in some of it. And we'll see how Wilson bounces back. Obviously, he's not going anywhere with the contract he was given. So, I mean, I think it's almost a 1-year thing here with Denver, if I'm being honest.
I was actually going to say, though, I will say Russell, even though he had no touchdowns passing-wise, he's been playing better, per se. He's not been awful like he was probably around week 2, week 3, week 4, but he's been playing better. I'll give him that. But they aren't able to get anything together to help them win games.
No, so Wilson finishing 24 for 31 with 247. But Devontae Adams, we talked about him, 7 catches, 141, 2 TDs, including a 35-yard reception to win the game.
And Derek Carr, again, is putting up good numbers, but they obviously struggle to win games, so it's really the whole thing.
That's just kind of how the Raiders and Broncos have been this season, just not fun to watch. Speaking of not fun to watch, Minnesota
Cowboys fan.
Minnesota fans look away 40-3. The Cowboys absolutely bludgeon the Vikings. Boys are 7-3, and this was one that it was over from about midway through the second quarter. Dallas got up 13-3, and then it just turned into a battle. You know you're going to lose when Brad Maher's making 60-yard field goals. You know you just pack it up after that. I mean, it just turned into Tony Pollard, and he did whatever he wanted to do. It was one of those types of games.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was one of those Vikings come in big off that Buffalo win. I think they're feeling pretty good, obviously, and I think they kind of had that hangover game effect to start this one. Defense came out strong, kept you within it, gave up a field goal there on that first possession. Offense was able to match before before both sides just kind of just felt tired, I guess, gave up, struggled, whatever you want to call it. But no, credit to Dallas. I mean, I think they're arguably the second best team in the NFC East, or in the NFC as a whole right now. Obviously, with
technically both can be true.
Yeah, that's true. With that, we'll see. I mean, obviously, as an Eagles fan, it's tough to say it, but it'll still be a fun game. Thanksgiving, I'm pretty sure it's Cowboys-Giants. Correct if I'm wrong. Giants. So that'd be obviously big for their standings and stuff. So that'll be a fun game, and there you go. You'll find out who the real second best team is in the NFC Thursday night.
Based off this game, I would say definitely Cowboys are going to be probably going to be heavily favored against the Giants, since obviously that would be, while being in Dallas, it's still a game that they're going to be heavily favored in. Minnesota, obviously, they came off major wins against at the time Jets were still playing good football, but got a win over the Jets and then beat the Bills, and then things just kind of fell. Then this game just fell apart. I mean, Dallas, their defense just came to play. That's really all I'll say about their defense. Made sure things did not go the way Minnesota wanted it to, and obviously it became the Pollard show. He was just so good. He was so good in that game.
I mean, it was Dallas's defense has been the story of the year, and it continues. This Cowboys defense, whenever they get, I mean, this is next level stuff. Usually they're great. This is the elite caliber defense you've been wanting to see if you're Dallas for the entire year. You know it's there. You got it in a big-time game. You hold Minnesota to 183 yards. You make Kirk Cousins look terrible. You make this entire team look terrible. And that takes a lot. It really does to make an 8-2 team look like they could have lost to Carolina. It takes a lot to do that. But just what a great day for Dallas. I mean, you had everything you needed to go your way, and it went your way. That is one of those just A game, A++, whatever you want to say. This is the true The Boys game, I guess, if you want to put it like
Don't
that.
say it.
I was going to say it,
Don't
Andrew.
say it.
That's America's team. Everyone loves Dallas. Isn't that right? We all love Dallas.
No.
Can't wait to see them get every Sunday night game next year because of this game.
That's fine.
Bengals-
I can sleep through this.
Yeah, Bengals-Steelers is the next one. And this was a fun back-and-forth game. Cincinnati getting a 37-30 win. Kenny Pickett out there. I mean, he throws for 265 and a TD. Burrow had a few interceptions, but 24 for 39, 355, 4 TDs. T. Higgins coming up big for the Bengals in this one as well. But my goodness, back and forth the entire game. Cincinnati really did pull away in the fourth quarter. The Steelers get a touchdown late to cut it back to 7.
Yeah, the Mike Tomlin effect, what we always talk about. He'll be able to coach away and be in pretty much every game, and you saw it here against Cincinnati, a pretty good Bengals team. I know it took them a little bit to start the year to kind of get in their groove, but it seems like they're really starting to hit some signs and strides for themselves through this game, or before this game, and carrying that into this game as well. And even with 2 turnovers, finding a way to win this game, and like you said, Cade had a double-digit lead before the Steelers got that late touchdown. So an impressive win here for Cincinnati on the road.
I can't really say much. Obviously, Burrow made up for some of those interceptions by getting those 4 TDs, and the Bengals were able to pretty much do what they can to make sure that they win this game. And Steelers obviously got a late touchdown and make it close, but at the end of the day, Bengals got the win. That's all they needed to get themselves set up.
And also, random, Samaje Perine with 3 receiving TDs. Definitely not the stat I would expect to come out of this game. But the final one to talk about what happened on Sunday night, the Chiefs beating the Chargers. It was a tale as old as time. Don't give the Chiefs more than a minute to do anything in the final seconds of the game.
I mean,
because if you do it, especially if you're the Chargers, you've seen this how many times now? 3, 4 it feels like. Big score by Justin Herbert, getting a clutch touchdown only for Kansas City to make it not even matter. Chiefs getting a 30-27 win. And, I mean, if you're a Chargers fan, I just feel for you because, my goodness, this is the definition of insanity. This is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
No, I always say it because everyone does always make that case. Oh, you give them too much time and stuff, kill more clock. But in the end, you got to score. You're not guaranteed to score. Like if you do give up a play just because you want to run and kill the clock, you're not guaranteed to score on the next play. And they ran a 10-play drive before scoring, so at some point you're going to have to get in. So, I mean, I can't fault them for doing that. You see stuff on social media where people are kind of blaming them for giving Mahomes the ball back, but I mean, you got to trust your defense there to get a stop as well, especially when it's not even like it's just get in field goal range. It's a full-on touchdown. So Justin Herbert did it, and that's why these games will always be fun just because of the quarterback battle, and that's what you saw here on Sunday night.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like I understand why people bring up you don't give Chiefs much time because it's like, well, teams have given the Chiefs time a few times and have been able to beat the Chiefs. The Bengals have been able to do it. I mean, you've had other teams and the Bills were able to do it. So it's one of those things where it's like you said, they ran 10 plays and they ran they killed a good amount of the clock. It's just that Chiefs, they were able to get up the field really quickly and gave it to Kelsey, who went off, had 3 touchdowns throughout the whole game. Mahomes obviously played one of his best games of the year, and just like Chiefs just ended up just doing what they always do, beat the Chargers. I don't know why people would have expected anything different.
It's one of those, I think, though, and you bring up a good point, Connor. Why do people focus so much on it? Because the Chargers' defense is bad.
Yeah,
the Bills and Bengals at least had solid defenses that you felt comfortable with. everyone watching this, the second the Chargers scored, you could see it all over social media. People were just like, well, that's game. Congratulations, Chargers. You just gave the game to Kansas City. I'm so proud of you.
Yeah.
I almost would rather take a knee with a minute. You're at the 6-yard line, 146 to go. I'd almost rather just take a knee there and say, okay, we're going to give ourselves 30 seconds to win this thing because we know what's going to happen. This is one of those, I feel like it's almost in your head at that point. When it happens 3 times in a row, it feels like at least you almost just like, okay, let's try to find some different way to do this here. And I know that sounds crazy for me to say that, but my goodness, you got to find something else here because your defense isn't going to be able to save the day.
Well, and that's where you got to go out and get the talent to better your defense.
Sir, this is the Chargers. They're not allowed to do that.
That is true, and I enjoy it.
I'm sure you do. What I enjoy
Chiefs
is college football because you get some wacky stuff that happens in it all the time.
There was a lot of wacky stuff.
We got to talk about what might have been one of the weirdest, wonkiest, I don't know what in the world was going on type of days. The entire top 5 struggled. I mean, it was battle after battle after battle, starting with the number 1 team in the country, Georgia taking on Kentucky in a 16-6 slugfest where, I mean, if you love field goals, this was a game for you in the first half. 9-0 Georgia at halftime. Kentucky getting a touchdown late in the game in terms of scoring in the fourth quarter, finally getting points on the board. Not able to get the 2-point conversion, though, and those are the only points the Dogs' defense gave up.
I do struggling with the relative term. I mean, to me, this game was never in question for Georgia. They controlled it from the beginning. Yeah, the offense might not have been great, but to me, there was never a point in this game where it was like, okay, Georgia might lose this game. They controlled it the whole way. I honestly don't put Georgia in that struggling category this weekend.
Yeah, it's like, well, I think the reason why they kind of put in that because you were expected to probably beat Kentucky by at least by more than 10 points. At least if you put like 17, 20 points, then they wouldn't be put in that column. But the offense overall didn't really perform like they have been the last few weeks. But I probably would also agree that they didn't really struggle because they pretty much dominated the whole. There wasn't any doubt that Georgia's defense was just going to hold Kentucky. It just people looked at the offense and were just like, oh, they're struggling. It's like, no, if you look at that defense, they're pretty much keeping Kentucky in check.
But to me, the problem is when Vanderbilt scores more on Kentucky than you do, you've got yourself issues. I get the defense is great, and I get that. You can have a dominant 16-6 win. I'm not saying that can't happen. But to me, it's one of those when Stetson Bennett goes out there and he's 13 for 19, 116 and a pick, and you can tell that the coaching staff does not trust him to make important throws in the game. It's one of those that, yes, you looked good here, but what's going to happen when you run into someone who knows what they're doing? Because Kentucky clearly doesn't at this point in the season.
Well, and it's also, I think the play calling was favoring a run game more than really.
Yeah, getting McIntosh, he had a great game.
So I think that's where it was more of like they just were not in any – really they didn't feel the need to put – they didn't want to put Stetson Bennett in any situation. I mean, they've seen Stetson Bennett play really well, so I wouldn't understand why they wouldn't have him do it, but I guess they wanted to do a more run game for this one, I guess. I don't know.
Well, that's kind of how Georgia usually is. You rely on your run game and you play good defense, and that's how you go 11-0 and try to go 12-0 next week. Ohio State, to me, was kind of a similar situation. A game where it looked like they were finally starting to put it away in the third quarter. You get up 27-13. You just need a few more stops, and your offense is going to handle itself. That's usually what happens there. But Maryland coming back, making it a 27-21 game. Ohio State gets a touchdown, but the PAT blocked and ran back for 2. Terps score again, and all of a sudden we got a 33-30 game with 9:49 left. Ohio State, though, able to get a field goal from Noah Ruggles and then a scoop-it score to make it 43-30. In a game where Ohio State did not look as impressive as people thought they would. Maryland technically putting up more yards than the Buckeyes.
I mean, that technically they did.
That's why it's technically correct, the best kind of correct.
But, yeah, Maryland obviously had that lead going into halftime, and obviously you get down 27-13, and you managed to get that game within 3, 33-30, and then Ohio State just were able to get a field goal, and they returned a defensive touchdown. So I'd say it's like Maryland put up a great fight, and Ohio State throughout the game struggled at times. Obviously, that's something that will be concerning going into the big rivalry matchup with Michigan. We'll obviously probably get to them right after this one, but still, it's like Ohio State just did enough to win overall. I mean, their defense came through to make the game look a little better, but Maryland has nothing to be ashamed of. They threw everything they could at Ohio State, and Ohio State just managed to get out with a win.
Would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for that halftime at Ohio State. I mean, especially with the way they came out in the third quarter, you just know they got like lit up at halftime. Yeah. I mean, to be down 13-10 at the break says enough there for you to think so. But then, again, just the way, the different energy you saw offensively and defensively, like the whole dynamic of that Ohio State team was different there in that second half. And I know Maryland had made it close in the fourth, and then all of a sudden Ohio State pulled away again. But no, I mean, credit to Ohio State. And we talked about the NFL games. And you're able to do that once things kind of – beginning of the year, yeah, you don't want those close wins against the no-name schools. But, like, at this point, you got your 10-0. You already got that top 5 spot. Ohio State, Georgia, whoever's in the top 5 at this point, you just got to, like in the NFL, just find ways to win now. You already racked up those points to get up in there in the top 5. So here you are. You've already separated yourself. Just find ways to win.
It is another game for Ohio State where you look at it. They always seem to have one of these every year where they get a close call that everyone kind of looks at and goes, okay, this is the game that proves they're beatable, and then they go destroy somebody the next week, and everyone forgets it happens.
Sorry, Michigan.
Yeah, so we'll have to talk about their opponent. Michigan had a similar near-death experience against Illinois, a game where the Illini have a lead with 10 seconds to go, but Jake Moody drills a 35-yard field goal, his third field goal of the quarter and his fourth of the game, to give Michigan a 19-17 win in a game that was, I mean, if you're a Michigan fan, yes, Illinois is a good team at 7-4. This is a game, if you're a Wolverine fan, you're looking at it going, this is way too close for comfort.
Oh, yeah. Most definitely, especially it was in Ann Arbor. So if it was in Illinois, you can make a case, okay, whatever. But you're playing in your own stadium with that over 100,000+ fans there in attendance. It's like the fact is that they still almost lost this game, and luckily they were just able to sneak a field goal in with less than 10 seconds. Really, it's like, hey, they managed to find a way to win, but still, it's still concerning that, unlike Ohio State, who had to go to Maryland, you're at home and you almost lost. So, but obviously, yeah, for all I know, this is like one of those weird games Michigan has, and they'll be geared up and ready. And I talked with my dad about this. We were talking about Michigan probably overlooked Illinois and was looking already to Ohio State in many ways. Probably that could have been a case, but I think it was just one of those. Michigan just wasn't as prepared for Illinois as they should have been.
See, I'm going to take a different road. Well, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think it goes to what we've been saying all year. We've been giving Illinois a lot of credit and everything and how good they looked, how much improved they looked. I think this game kind of showed what we've been talking about all year and how better they do look and how they are starting to kind of turn that program around, and it looks like. And while, yeah, I do agree, Michigan probably overlooked them a little bit, and, yeah, they definitely struggled. But I think we do have to give Illinois a lot of credit for what they made Michigan look like throughout that game and even have a lead for a little bit in this one. So I took away that out of this one as well. It's just kind of what we've been saying all year is they're making a name. They're trying to bring back the program. And I think this, while you did lose it, I think it did caught a lot of people's eyes, and I think it can go a long way for the program as a whole.
It's been a good season, though, for Brett Bielema and the Fighting Illini. Even though you lose this game, you're still in that weird Big Ten West scenario. I mean, you look at it down here, Iowa, Purdue, Illinois, Minnesota, Wisconsin, all technically still in possibility of making the Big Ten title game.
Oh, my God.
The West is crazy. The West is absolutely crazy. Iowa might actually win the Big Ten West, despite everyone joking about, 7-3 with 2 safeties at the beginning of the year. The Hawkeyes are ready to find a way, but Michigan and Ohio State both 11-0, so for the first time since 2006, an undefeated the game. But if we want to talk more about last-second field goals, TCU and Baylor, another example of doing something so wrong that it ends up going right. Clock management, what is that? Sonny Dykes doesn't need clock management. What he has is a kicker that can win you a game, and Griffin Kelly gets a 40-yard field goal as time expires to give TCU a 29-28 win and escape Waco to get 11-0.
Hey, real quick, I don't know what ad you keep
It's
pausing,
darn Best
but
Buy.
No, it's up top. I don't know. It makes me ready for Thanksgiving since
Yeah.
you brought it up at the beginning because you
Yeah.
pause it at the same spot when it shows the turkey every time.
There you go.
So I have no idea who the advertisement is, but it's making me hungry and making me ready for Thursday.
Well,
That's all I gotta say on
I'm
that.
sorry, Andrew. We're trying to, I wish I got paid to show these ads, but unfortunately I don't, so we just got to pause them or else they're going to start trying to randomly do stuff here.
But no, I think, again, like I just mentioned, credit to TCU. Again, you've already separated yourself. You worked your way into that top 4 spot. Find ways to win. I mean, everyone values these road conference games, and that's what TCU did here. They found it. They struggled, obviously, throughout the game. But in the end, they got the field goal. They win the game. They'll most likely – I don't see any way they don't, but they'll keep that 4 spot and a top 4 spot in the playoffs going into the final week of the season. So, or final week of the regular season before you get to the championship Saturday. So, credit to TCU. They did what they had to do. You get it, and Baylor's no joke. I mean, I know they struggled a little bit this year compared to last year, but they're still a solid team, and it's a good road win for TCU.
I'd say Baylor, even though Baylor's record is 6-5, their team overall is way better than what their record shows. So it's one of those things where they still went into Waco and beat a good Baylor team that just isn't having the season they would like. So the fact that they managed to get out of that. One thing me and my dad, bringing up with my dad, is that we talked about why did Baylor get in a hurry to get off the field when they were bringing the field goal unit on instead of just taking their time, because you'll have to sub in. So it's like, is the referee's not going to hold down the ball wait for a substitution? Baylor could have just taken their time getting off the field, and they would have been able to, because I saw one of their guys run off the field, so I was like, wait, why is he running? He could have just slowly wait his way off the field and kill extra clock where they won't even be able to get a kickoff.
Yeah, you just got to make sure it's obvious or not obvious enough where you're doing that, else you get a delay game.
That's true.
Yeah, so it's one of those where it might be, you got to remember, these are 18 to 22-year-olds out here.
True.
You see other people running, you just decide to as well.
Well,
it's one of those mental mistakes that you're going to look back on the film and go, why did we not just do that?
Well, and I think also it was one of those where they were keeping the defense on the field. They didn't bring in that special teams unit because only like 2 guys came off the field. So
yeah,
pretty much all they did was just bring guys, like a couple guys back onto the field, and they just went, okay, this is just going to be our block unit. And obviously didn't happen, and TCU just did a good job managing to squeak out a win. This easily was probably the trap game that TCU was hoping to avoid, but they pretty much have set themselves up to, as long as they win next week, they'll be right there. They're ready to win a Big 12 championship if they can beat K-State.
Yeah, if they can beat K-State or Texas. Texas still can find a way to get back to Arlington. They're going to need some help, though, from their friends, the Jayhawks. So TCU 11-0, big season for the Frogs as they continue their road to Arlington, the whole 5-mile drive to get to the Big 12 title game. The next one here, the big stunner, Tennessee, South Carolina. I'm getting ready to be really mad at Best Buy if they keep showing these darts ad. I do not care about your Black Friday deals. We do not have one here. So
I will say before you continue this, Spencer Rattler has single-handedly changed his legacy from being a bust of a failure at Oklahoma to he's now set himself up to where, hey, he's a really solid really good quarterback when he's given the chance to. I mean, you put 63 on Tennessee. I understand Tennessee doesn't have an amazing defense, but the fact that he's played, this is his best game of the year. He balled out the best I've ever seen him play since, I think, during his first year at OU.
Yeah, so this is the Spencer that we've always known can show up. I mean, the 2020 season, he had a few games where he would play like this, not to this level of 435 yards, 6 TDs, obviously, but where you could see that level is there. And, man, he saw that they were playing UT and realized he couldn't get benched in this game. He didn't want to get benched 3rd year in a row against an Orange UT. So Spencer Rattler going off 30 for 37. Hendon Hooker getting injured at the end of the game, tearing his ACL. He is now out for the rest of the season.
Well, there goes the season.
The Vols are 9-2. Your playoff hopes are over. And if you're South Carolina, this is a giant win for Coach Shane Beamer and what this Gamecock program has been trying to build here. The positivity, the energy, of we can go beat anybody in Willie Bryce at night. And that's what they've been able to do. South Carolina in a shootout, 63-38. First time in almost 100 years that a team has dropped 60 or more on a top 5 team in the AP poll.
That big win for South Carolina. A lot of credit to them. Again, unfortunate injury there for Tennessee. Hopefully he's able to have a quick recovery and get back out on the field. But unfortunately for Tennessee, like you said, Cade, their playoff hopes are now done with that loss. But, I mean, we'll see what this does for South Carolina's program as a whole and what Rattler can do there to finish out his career with South Carolina.
I mean, it was one of those, the South Carolina in the first half scoring nearly every time they touched the ball, if not every time. In the third quarter, of course, he had a few stops there back and forth. Tennessee looked like they might come back. They pull within 4, and the Gamecocks score 28 points in a row to pretty much say, no, that ain't happening today. But a huge win for South Carolina. And finally, after the top 4 teams had some interesting moments in their games, South Carolina seals the deal, and we got a top 5 upset the week before the final week. And then USC and UCLA, a battle between the Trojans and the Bruins. I hate you, Best Buy, at this point. I don't understand why this ad wants to jump up, but it does anyway. Come on, ESPN. Come on. Fix your website, guys. But Trojans getting a 48-45 win over the Bruins in a shootout. A lot of people calling this one of the best games of the year already for how they played. And, I mean, DTR throws for 4 TDs, throws for 309, but the 3 interceptions ends up being the killer for the Bruins.
Yep, pretty much that. If you take away at least 2 of those interceptions, you probably see UCLA getting a top 10 victory on USC, but it doesn't happen, and those mistakes ended up costing you the game.
Yeah, a lot of credit here to USC battling back, finding a way to finish this one out and get the win, clinch your spot in the Pac-12 title game. So guarantee that extra game there. So no, got a lot of credit. I mean, USC continues to play well. They'll be up there, obviously still fighting for the playoff spot. I think if TCU was to drop a game, I think you'd take a 1-loss USC over a 1-loss TCU. So I think they are right there in that position if they do get some help here down the stretch. I think it'd be an interesting case. Obviously, Ohio State or Michigan's guaranteed to lose one of them here next week. So, again, USC's right there in position because there's another top 4 team, or there is a top 4 team that's guaranteed to lose a game here. So we'll see what's going to happen. What would you take? And it's going to create that argument because USC's looked pretty good all year. They're at the quarterback position too, and it's gonna be a fun argument here down the stretch. But USC does enough, and that offense was phenomenal.
I mean, Caleb Williams. What else do you want to say about him? 32 for 43, 470 yards, 2 TDs. He did have the 1 interception though, but hey, that's just his 3rd of the year. Not gonna blame him for that.
No.
What a huge game this was. Jordan Addison coming back, 11 catches, 178 and a TD. This is a Trojan team that is fun to watch. They put points on everybody they play. They give up a lot of points, but they create a lot of turnovers as well. I would think when the rankings come out tomorrow, the Trojans would be number 5.
That's what
perfectly in that spot. Whenever Michigan or Ohio State loses next Saturday, if they can close the deal against Notre Dame, they will be playing a title for a conference title and a playoff spot more than likely.
Yep.
But the next one here, keeping it with the Pac-12. It's Utah and Oregon in a fun battle between these two. A little Pac-12 after dark going on in this one. Ducks getting a 20-17 win. Utah with a big third-quarter surge to tie it at 17, but the Ducks came back and got the win on a 6-minute drive to get that 41-yard field goal. Big win for Oregon. A lot of turnovers in this game. 6 combined turnovers between the two teams. And Utah, they controlled time of possession. They did not get the normal game plan they had, though. They did not dominate in yards. They did dominate in first downs, though. One of those weird games where it kind of seemed one-sided, and it seems one-sided the other way, but Bo Nix and company able to pull out the win, and it looks like we might see that Oregon-USC game for the Pac-12 title.
Hey, it's gonna be a lot of fun to watch if that's what happens. But no, credit to both teams. I mean, Utah bows back after going down 17-3 at halftime. Credit to Oregon holding on, getting that victory there in the fourth quarter, but a little more defensive than I was expecting here. As you mentioned, Cade, a lot of turnovers, but just in general, the score too. I was expecting a little more offense.
I mean, it was one of those that, I mean, if you told me Oregon was going to be held to 20 against Utah, I would have thought the Utes would have had this thing in the bag. But congrats to the Ducks defense. They showed up once again. The next one here to get to, Georgia Tech, North Carolina. What a game this was. Man, Georgia Tech, the entire season they've had, to be able to bounce back, to win a game like this, to upset a top 15 team, huge one for the Yellow Jackets, getting a 21-17 win. Just, my goodness, they have been playing better and better every single week. You get down 17-0, doesn't matter, come back and get the win.
Especially on the road. You think they go down 17-0, that's your chance. You know, North Carolina just needs to close it out. But on the road, they're even able to come back and get the job done. So, yeah, no. And they've been in a lot of games, just haven't been able to find a way to win. So that's what's kind of funny about this one, kind of having the opposite. You're going out of the game, and they find a way to climb back in it and close it out.
Yeah, I mean, it was absolutely incredible to see for Georgia Tech. One of those that, I mean, it seems North Carolina has one of these every year, though, under Mac Brown.
Oh,
you have one game where you have absolutely no business losing, and you have one game where you have absolutely no business winning. I haven't seen that absolutely no business winning game yet. Who knows? Maybe they're saving it for Clemson in the ACC title game. Maybe they aren't. But this was just a loss that you cannot have if you're North Carolina. You had the slim hope that maybe if enough things went your way, maybe you could sneak into the playoff. That dream is obviously done now. Mm-hmm. But the next one, speaking of teams here, as we get, live reaction of you guys, because for some reason I hit that button instead of the other button. Ole Miss and Arkansas, what a game this was. Ole Miss dropped 21 points in the fourth quarter in a big rally to only lose by 15. I mean, Arkansas just straight up dominating, KJ Jefferson coming back, and the Hogs had anything they wanted. Yes, Ole Miss had 703 yards of offense, but it didn't matter. They had 3 turnovers. Arkansas, yes, they were outgained by 200 yards. Does not matter. They were up 42-6 at one point. And then, I don't know if you saw the post-game aftermath, but you had Arkansas fans stealing Ole Miss players' helmet, running around with the stadium with it. Random stuff going on, but don't tell these two it's not a rivalry.
Well, and Arkansas, for the most part, has had a disappointing year for themselves. Coming in, expecting a lot more out of it. And this was almost like, you know what, we've had a frustrating season. Let's just take it out on somebody. And Ole Miss was standing there, and they were the ones that were going to take it out on. Again, like you said, Cade, jumping out to the 42-6 lead and everything. And at that point, they were kind of like just took their foot off the gas a little bit and allowed Ole Miss to climb back in. But just incredible to put up 700 yards, have 200 more yards than your opponent, and you still lose by double digits, and you were down 42-6 at one point. So that takes skill right there from Ole Miss.
I mean, just one of those things. Arkansas just obviously scored 42, and it was 42-6 at the end of the third quarter. There's really, you couldn't ask for much more. It's like makes you wonder, where was this Arkansas team the whole year?
Injured half the time.
Yeah,
that was their.
I know, but I meant like early on.
I know what
just
you
one
mean.
Of those things that obviously the injuries piled up, but it's like the fact that they were still able to do something like this, despite the fact they're probably still not even 100%, is something that's like they have the capability of doing this, but obviously issues happen during the year. Obviously, you're now bowl eligible, so it's one of those things where it's almost just ended up being the team that take it out on. And that just really shows just like. It's like you have 200 more yards than Arkansas, but yet you still lose 42-27. That's just that. It's like Lane Kiffin's got things to fix on that team.
Yeah, I mean it's the same thing we see happen to every Ole Miss team, though. You have one of these games where your defense it's okay at times, but other games it just completely falls apart. This happened to be that game. The offense couldn't keep up with the defense. And my goodness, when you have a 42-6 hole, the fact that they made this look somewhat respectable is even impressive. The next one here, UCF, all you had to do was beat Navy. You're favored by 19. Surely this wouldn't be hard. Not happening.
Sports.
Not happening. The midshipmen, they threw one pass. They didn't need to complete it, though. Navy with a 17-14 win in a game where it was just a struggle for everything. Early game, though, as well, starting at 11 a.m. Eastern. You're not used to seeing that, 10 a.m. Central. What a kind of weird situation they had there going on. But Navy, they did exactly what you expect a Navy team to do. Holding onto the ball for 39 and a half minutes, forcing turnovers, doing everything they had to do to keep UCF from clinching that American title game spot. Looking at the standings now, UCF is behind Cincinnati and Tulane, and UCF is going to find a way to get in. They beat Tulane, and I believe they also, can't remember if they beat Cincinnati or not, but it's going to come down to Cincinnati-Tulane next week for who gets to host the American title game. So, huge week here now with even more implications than already.
Yeah, I think the early start obviously had an effect on UCF. They didn't come ready to play. It didn't seem like. Obviously, Navy gets the early touchdown there and kind of just takes control, not letting them back in it. Navy never lost the lead in this game. So credit to Navy. I mean, again, you got to go out there and play the game no matter what the spread is or anything, and that's what they're able to do here. So credit to Navy.
Yeah, I just looked it up. Yeah, it is correct, Cade. Whoever loses next week between Cincinnati and Tulane will play UCF.
Yeah, it is going to be a wild game. That's a Friday day game too, so it's going to be crazy to see what happens there. And then it's bedlam, all right. Things did happen. People were on a field. That's about all I could say to describe this game. Oklahoma comes out to the blazing 28-0 start, score after score after score. Sanders throwing pick after pick after pick. But then Oklahoma kind of just took their foot off the gas and tried to roll out the car. And Oklahoma State slowly kept creeping their way back into this game. A game where, I mean, everyone got cold. I don't know if everyone's brain got frozen too on the OU sideline. Jeff Lebby kind of decided, hey, let's just keep throwing the ball. We're up 28-13 with 5 minutes left. What can possibly go wrong?
A lot of things.
The answer is everything, but the defense for Oklahoma, the game of the year for them. Did not expect them to come out and play the way they did. Cannot believe I'm saying I'm proud of an OU defense for the first time in a while. But
I'd say they did play good, but overall OSU pretty much handed that game to them. It wasn't really a lot of what OU did necessarily right. I mean, they did things right. Defense overall did play well for, I'd say that first quarter, they were dominant. That OU's defense was very dominant, but they kind of just let OSU beat themselves up throughout that game. OSU did themselves no favors by getting themselves in that hole, especially with the turnovers. That didn't help at all. And then OSU had opportunities to actually get themselves back in the game and actually possibly could tie it if they could, but you fail to convert. You fail on fourth down on OU's side. You throw another pick in the back of the end zone, and you for some reason punt on short yardage. It's one of those things where it feels like there was no urgency from the coaching staff to actually try to be aggressive and take it to, because OU wasn't really doing that offense wasn't doing anything for OU, and at times OU's defense was at a point where they're on the back of their heels. But then OSU does something stupid, and OU takes advantage. The defense plays well for when they need to, and all you can say is OU did enough in that first quarter to make themselves good. But OU kind of didn't really play like they played good. Like defense played good, but the offense was kind of playing piss poor for the most part. So it just whatever I saw. I overall struggled to really watch the game at all, especially after the first quarter. But I still kept up with the game. Afterwards, saw stuff of it. It's like, how did OSU just not get things figured out enough to where they can at least make it respectable, look it really close, instead didn't do anything?
I'm going to disagree with you. OU outclassed OSU in this game. It wasn't OSU handed to this. OU came prepared. OU came ready to play. They didn't matter what happened in the beginning of the year. I mean, to say OSU handed this game, I disagree with. Oklahoma's defense was 10 times better to start this game. I mean, OU came down got the kickoff, and they scored in a minute and a half and 75-yard play drive. I mean, that's OU coming ready to play. That's them seeing what OSU has on the field. And then even after that, they come back down with a 9-play, 93-yard drive. Again, I I want to give I don't want to give OU any credit as well, but I mean when they outclass OSU in this game, you got to give credit where credit's due. And I mean the turnovers come after it's 14-0 there. Again, OU starts with 2 phenomenal drives there offensively. And even OSU, after they go down 14-0, they force a turnover of their own, get the ball back. It's like, okay, here you go. You can save the first quarter. But, again, OSU offense doesn't come ready to play. And, again, the issue I have in this game, and to me this goes back to coaching, your players don't know the plays in Week 11. Like, that's just unacceptable. The quarterback, and it doesn't even matter to me, the injuries, because these guys still know the plays. They've still been in the system. They've still played with each other at practice, and they've had the last 11 weeks together. And to not be on the same page is one thing, but they clearly didn't know the plays at some points here. And to me, that goes a lot. That goes on the players. That goes on coaching. And again, OU just came out stronger, and they didn't have to do anything in the next 3 quarters except play defense, and that's what OU did.
I mean, to me, it was one of those.
The main issue is OSU in those 3 good quarters had opportunities to actually do something with it, and they screwed the pooch on it. That was a whole, like I said, I gave credit. OU's defense did good. They did enough throughout the rest of the game to keep OSU from doing stuff. But I'm not going to sit here and pretend that OSU didn't royally mess up on opportunities on there. So it's like OU, like I said, OU did what they did. They came out, swung, and then did nothing on that offense, pretty much for the 3 quarters. But again, defense did enough to stop.
Yeah, on the Oklahoma side of this was one of those that you looked at it. The first quarter was, as someone who was in the stadium for this was one of the most electric times I can remember, Norman. It was one of those OU scores. They raced down the field. We all kind of look at each other going, okay, that's new. Haven't seen that in a while. Oklahoma State goes 3 and out, or I think they went 3 and out.
Yeah,
but
3 and out.
Yeah, 3
and then
and
OU goes down, scores again, and it was just like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. I love 3 and outs and score. This one, and then
miscommunication pick.
The miscommunication pick, and once that happened, the crowd kind of realized like, okay, this is getting weird, but we're for it. And Braden Wills fumbles, and that was deflating a bit, but. The crowd in the first quarter, I have to say, for Norman, that is the most electric I've seen it in a while. It was start to finish. Everyone's rocking, ready to go. And as an Oklahoma fan, looking back at it, it could have been 42-0 at the end of the first quarter, easily. Braden Wills doesn't fumble there. You possibly score another time. You're right there. And Dylan Gabriel missing Eric Gray on a wide-open wheel route. I mean, looking back at it, it was like, this should be over right now. This game is done, but Oklahoma's offense, not even taking foot off the gas. You're just throwing the car into the ocean and sitting at that point. I don't know what Jeff Lebby was doing. I continue to be frustrated by his play calling. Eric Gray is right there, man. Give him the ball. Do not try to throw the ball on 2nd and 10 with Dylan Gabriel, who is still inconsistent. But this is one of those games that I'm happy that I can complain that we only won by 15. That's the main thing here. We made a bowl game. The streak is intact. Our disaster season is still bowl eligible somehow by the grace of the Lord. I don't know what else to say about this game other than it had highs, it had lows, it had everybody cold, it had everyone mad. It was bedlam.
But all you can say is you overall played a good football game.
Yeah, overall we played a game that I am happy that we won. Could have been better, but definitely could have been worse. And that is the main thing to take away from that one. Oklahoma getting a 28-13 win in a game where, well, I don't know what else to say about that, but it happened. And then Louisville doing something kind of similar to NC State, a 25-10 win here. I mean, this was just one of those where you look at it, you get a little bit of a field goal war going on, but what a big win for Louisville, getting another upset. This is what Louisville's been trying to build towards at home, to where they can get back into these type of games. And you get a 7-4 record on the season for Louisville, so not bad for the Cardinals. Yes, NC State's still a bit depleted. yes, ESPN doesn't know how to work this. I don't know why this field goal is worth 4 points, but it is apparently.
I was like, wait, how is that the way it is? But
Don't
okay.
worry. It's just then they make up for it here with the 5-point touchdown.
Well,
so
that's
don't
what
worry.
you guys are looking at the field goal. I wasn't paying attention to the field goal. I was looking at the touchdown.
Yeah,
Where
I was, that's what I
17
was looking at. I was like, what?
I'm like,
Yeah. don't worry. ESPN.
so is that the final score actually 25-10? Is that
The final score
okay.
was actually yes. It was actually 25-10. ESPN just kind of messed their point system up here a little bit, but
Okay, that was like
still a big win for Louisville.
Yeah.
In their game there. But do we have any other final thoughts about the weekend here and kind of rolling into today? Basketball, soccer, football in different forms. Grey Cup happened as well. If anyone cares, Toronto beat Winnipeg. The dynasty is over in Canada.
who does TCU play?
TCU plays Iowa State at home this week.
Okay, well,
That should be a frog victory
should
to go to 12-0.
And let's see, and K-State plays Kansas. Who does Texas play? Baylor.
Texas plays Baylor on Friday.
Is it
in Austin?
Okay. Depending on how that game goes, we'll either see K-State or Texas in regards to how the weekend turns out.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting in the Big 12 to see what happens there. Should be a fun time as always, though. What a wild season it has been at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, everything, just the twists, the turns, the drama, the even more drama. Shout out to Texas A&M with their empty stadium against UMass. You'll love to see it, folks. Only won by 17. Shaking my head. That's all I can say there. But as always, we thank you for tuning in. Always a fun time having you all with us. If you want to see more of the show, feel free to follow us here on twitch.tv/NWTV7 or follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram at NWTV7 to get notified on when we go live. If you're watching on YouTube, hey, thanks for sticking around for the whole show. We sincerely appreciate it. As always, like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment in the section below. For Andrew Santangelo and Connor Gray, I am Cade Kennedy. Have a wonderful, wonderful night, everybody. And if we don't see you for the Wednesday show that we may or may not have, I don't know at this point. Schedules are hard. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving, everybody.